So often we have conversations about specifically relationships by looking at some of the things to avoid, the red flags, some of the traps that we fall into, that we've fallen into in the past, that we want other people to avoid. Because part of us as human beings is that we have a huge survival mechanism, right? And that survival mechanism is to help us and prevent us from not just going into things that threaten our survival and our livelihood, but things that contribute to us getting hurt. So that's part of the survival mechanism that we have inbuilt within each and every one of us, just to make sure that we are able to thrive within this world. And that's why most of the times we speak about some of the things that we need to avoid, the things that we need to make sure that we don't get into, so that we're not part of the statistics of people who get divorced, of people who get maybe killed within relationships, right? Sometimes we're looking at all the different things that we need to avoid in order for us to have healthy relationships. But I do think that we don't always have enough of the conversation about how are we able to identify that this relationship that I'm in is a healthy one, that I need to make sure that I maintain this environment in order for me to get to that point of growing with my partner, so that this relationship can actually get us to the point of also reaching the goals that we have individually and also together. So today's topic is basically that. So I literally was just like, let's title it, does your environment allow for a healthy relationship to grow? And specifically looking at secure attachments, right? So if you are interested in that kind of material, please do consider watching the entire video. Hi there, and welcome back to Thinking Out Loud with Rue. I am Rutendo, and this is basically a channel that I started to speak about everything psychology, everything adulting, from a psychology perspective as well as from a person who is a Christian. So if you are interested in that type of content, please do consider subscribing. Hit the subscribe button so that you don't miss any videos that I am going to be uploading in the future, including this one. And please do also consider leaving a like and also a comment, because it really does help with the algorithm in terms of spreading these videos wide and loudly. But yeah, so thank you so much for tuning in today. If you are a returning subscriber, I appreciate your support. I genuinely do appreciate everyone who tunes in and takes the time to actually watch the entire video. So today I was just like, listen, let's talk about relationships, not just about identifying red flags like I've done in the past, but actually looking at the environment that can foster a healthy relationship to develop. Because I do think that sometimes we are so quick to be able to identify red flags, but we're not always quick to be able to identify green flags, right? To be able to identify things that are good within a relationship. And it's important for us to have conversations from that perspective as well, so that we are people who are also very quick to identify and appreciate the good, right? So when I was thinking about this topic, I actually had to sit with it for like a week and a half to look at where did I want to go with it. And since I am in psychology, I was like, let's actually speak about it from the perspective of secure attachments. So basically, the attachment theory was developed to explain how a child can have a positive relationship with a caregiver, with a primary caregiver, or with their parents, if you would like to term it that. And what the theory postulates is that how a child is raised within their primary environment can now influence their later development and their future relationships as well. So it all comes back to that environment that they had with their caregiver. And they're basically looking at the formative developmental stages, which is basically from 0 to 2 years old, and how a parent engages with their child within that stage can really determine whether that child is going to develop a secure attachment, an anxious attachment, or an avoidant attachment. Because it goes back to that word that I always use, which is survival, right? To say that if you feel safe with your parent, if you feel unsafe with your parent, it basically determines how you're going to be engaging and acting and behaving within relationships moving forward, because you're going to think of them either as safe or unsafe. And if you think of them as unsafe for the sake of your survival, pretty much, you're going to be maybe pulling away from individuals within your life, maybe keeping people at a distance, because again, it's about our survival and our safety. Our bodies always go back to that. Fundamentally, we want to feel safe. So when we look at now the attachment theory, there are basically 4 components that are important for us to discuss in terms of just a healthy, nurturing environment. So I know this attachment theory is something that is developed to specifically look at how a infant, how a child attaches to their parent. But I do think that there's something about this theory that can also be interpreted, or that can be employed for us to understand relationships now. What makes a good relationships? What makes an environment good for you to continue growing as an individual? Because just because we're adults doesn't mean that we don't need an environment that also nurtures us, an environment that makes us feel safe, and an environment that basically responds to every one of our needs, right? So we still need that as adults, even though this theory is basically developed to explain secure attachments in children. But I do think that it can be applied to us as adults. So the first thing that is emphasized within a secure attachment as a component is emotional availability and responsiveness. And basically you're looking at how present, how emotionally present is your partner, right? And I basically think about it this way. When we consider us as human beings, we are holistic human beings, even when we get into relationships, in that we are people who bring history with us when it comes to relationships. We bring history of how we use finances. We bring history of how we see our families and friends, how we want to be able to engage with our families and friends moving forward. We bring history of trauma. We bring history of how we've been hurt in the past or betrayed in the past by different people in our lives, whether it's in communities like churches or it's in communities like workspaces. We bring all this history within relationships. And we want to know that if I'm a person who's bringing all this history, when I do share it with the person, are they going to be emotionally responsive and emotionally present to actually give me the space to speak about some of the things that I went through without judging, without making me feel like, listen, maybe you are the most broken person in this world and you don't deserve to be loved, without making this person feel unworthy or unworthy of their attention. You want to feel like this person is actually holding a space where you can feel safe and you can also feel heard. And you want to also look at how responsive are they when I share some of the things that I've been through. How are they actually creating a space where I'm feeling heard? Are they creating a space where I'm rather feeling unheard and I'm starting to withdraw? So it's also important that you look at yourself and how you engage or open up within the context of sharing. Is this person actually creating an environment where you can feel heard, where you can feel like, okay, this, whatever I shared, it's not going to be used against me in the future, because they're literally making me feel like, listen, I'm a safe space for you, and I'm going to be creating a space where you can heal and you can feel like you're starting to become the person that you always wanted to be. And the next thing that you look at when it comes to emotional availability and responsiveness is predictability. You're looking at, can I predict this person's behavior, right? And that comes from reliability. It comes from knowing the fact that in the past when I've shared, this is how they reacted, this is how they created a safe space for me. So are they consistent in some of the things that they do in your life, so that you are able to feel like, okay, based on 1, 2, 3 that they've done in the past, I know that if I bring this to this space, I know that I'm safe. So you're always looking at emotional presence, you're looking at responsiveness to some of the things that you share, and you're also looking at predictable behavior. If a person is constantly being unpredictable, that 1 minute they're this and the next they're that, it creates this environment where you're not sure if this person can actually be trusted with some of the things that you hold dear. So it's important that you're always able to sort of predict. I know sometimes people have their bad days, but there are also moments that there are patterns that you can trace to say that this is this kind of person based on 1, 2, 3. So it's important that you're able to look at a series of reliability in order for you to get to that point of feeling safe emotionally to be able to share some of the things. And the second thing that we look at when it comes to looking at an environment that is safe for you to develop a healthy relationship is safety and support. So basically for children, you're looking at physical safety. But I think for adults, for us as grown people, we look at it in terms of, you're not hurting me, right? And I think this goes to say in terms of conversations like physical abuse, conversations like sexual abuse, right? You're not putting me in a place where I'm feeling physically threatened, where I feel like I can't trust you with my well-being. I can't trust you with protecting me, things like that. It's very important that when you consider a healthy relationship, you consider physical safety as well. How is this person when it comes to your safety? Are they people that are always looking at, babe, have you eaten? It goes back, and I think in the early stages of relationships, we ask that a lot, have you eaten? Because you're just looking at, is this person taking care of themselves? Are they taking care of their physical well-being? Are they people who actually put your physical well-being at the forefront of their minds to make sure that you are taken care of? And I think sometimes it's very important and admirable if we are in relationships with people who consider not just our emotional well-being, but looking at our physical well-being and caring about everything concerning us. And sometimes it even goes to look at, how are you taking care of your physical well-being in terms of exercise, in terms of what you are eating? And sometimes, yes, it might be a little bit on the annoying end if you're being told by your partner, listen, I think this might be a little bit healthier. But I do think that it goes a long way if a person cares for your physical well-being to that level, to your medical well-being, to know that, listen, my partner struggles with iron, or they struggle with their body always being cold, making sure that they support you within that. And I think sometimes it's just looking at, what does your partner struggle with in terms of medical and physical conditions, whether it's diabetes, whether it is, I can't think of any other physical condition right now, but just looking at, how can I support my partner to take care of their well-being and to just manage their well-being, considering some of the medical conditions that are out there, whether it's cholesterol and all these other different things. So it's just important that we look at how we're supporting each other. If we're staying in the same environment and I know that my partner has high cholesterol, I'm not always going to be cooking meat that has a lot of fat, but I'm looking at, okay, so how do we maybe extract the fat so that it's not as harmful to my partner? We're looking at people who are actually considerate to the details, to make sure that they're also supporting you in some of the things that you might be experiencing in your life. And the next thing that we look at safety and support is emotional safety, to be able to be in a place where you can express your emotions. And I think it goes a long way, because I've heard a lot of people who say that, listen, the number one problem in my relationship is that I don't feel heard. I express what I need. I express my expectations, but I don't always feel heard within the emotions that I hold. And as a result of that, I end up feeling emotionally unsafe within the relationship. So it's very important that you as a partner also create a safe space so that you can also be supportive to your partner. Whether it is a space to be like, okay, I want to understand, what is your day-to-day life like? What are some of the things that you struggle with? What are some of the things that you experience at work? How can I be better present for you so that I can create this environment where you start to feel safe and you start to feel heard? That even though this world is sometimes against you, because the world doesn't care. The world doesn't care if your partner is fed. The world doesn't care if your partner is feeling okay or feeling heard, but you should. Because if the world is not creating this space where a person can be fully themselves, you should be creating that space for your partner so that you are not another person that is literally bringing them down. So it's very important that you also look at creating the emotional safety to express your feelings and for them to also express their feelings. And when it comes to safety and support, we also look at, are they able to comfort and reassure you? And sometimes it could be within some of the goals that you have, to say that, listen, I'm working towards this. You are not belittling this person by just making it seem like them accomplishing their goals is nothing. Especially if you know that they've been putting every single ounce of their energy into making sure that they reach this goal. Sometimes it's just about reassuring them if they do reach their goals. And if they don't, helping them look at other different things that they can do to be able to get to that point. Or helping them reflect on the growth and the development that they've already achieved so far. And providing that comfort in moments where there is loss, in moments where there is uncertainty, or in moments where there is just harm that is caused by the world. It's just important that we're able to create that space of just being like a safe space, a sanctuary. The same way that we can run to God and pour our hearts and say that, listen, life is lifing right now. We may need to be that space for our partners. And they may need to be that for us as well, for us to be able to feel safe and comforted and reassured, especially when everything around us feels like it's burning. And then the next thing, number 3, that we have when it comes to components of a secure attachment is a sense of exploration and support. And I think how this can apply to a healthy relationship generally comes from the encouragement to explore, the encouragement to want to literally grow within your career, want to develop, want to pursue things that are able to speak to your development as a human being. Whether it is, okay, I struggle with connecting emotionally, how can I develop that emotional intelligence? Or within the workspace, looking at, for me, like I shared before, one of my goals is to become a clinical psychologist one day, right? And then maybe my partner within that can be helping me in terms of applications, helping me in terms of some of the things that I might need to do to create better chances for me to be able to be a clinical psychologist in the future, whether it is attending workshops or attending seminars, whatever it is. But just creating that space where that exploration of our dreams can be allowed. And I think it's not only about our dreams, but sometimes it's also about being able to nurture relationships outside of the relationship that you're currently in, right? And I don't mean this in the open sense of saying that open up your relationship. No. I don't mean it in that sense. But I mean it in the sense of being able to still go on vacations with your friends, or being able to still explore some of the activities that you enjoy that your partner might not enjoy, but doing that with other people within your life, friends in your life that also enjoy the same thing. Because I do think that healthy relationships also encourage you to maintain other relationships that are also healthy for you, other friendships, other familial relationships so that your partner is not the only person who's providing a sense of community for you. Because one thing to consider is that there is unfortunately death. What would happen when your partner is no longer there? Are you going to be okay? And that question can only be answered by the genuine perception of just looking at your life and investigating, do I actually keep other relationships that will allow me to feel sustained outside of this relationship? And if you can answer that genuinely and honestly and say yes, then it means that this relationship that you're currently in has allowed you to explore life outside of the boundaries of this relationship. And it's also important that the relationship also fosters a positive reinforcement for your efforts, for your accomplishments. And finally, that it also, there is healthy boundaries in place to help you explore the world safely, right? And I think sometimes it's also about being able to respect the relationship itself. What are some of the things that contribute to your relationship still being safe, even though you are exploring? Because make no mistake, the world doesn't care that you're in a relationship. The world doesn't care. And I think sometimes there is just something that is released outside of you. There is ferments that are released outside of you when you're in a relationship. All of a sudden, people can see that, oh, you're actually very attractive. And despite the fact that you're married, people are able to see that, listen, there is something great about this person, because they're able to see there's something healthy that you're now radiating to the entire world. And sometimes that attracts people. So it's important that you also have boundaries within your relationships that allows you to protect you from outside forces. And that means that when you are recognizing that maybe within my workplace there's someone who likes me more than just a colleague, they want me to be in their lives more intimately, being able to draw boundaries. And that means that actually speak with each other about some of these conversations, because people are not blind. People around you are not blind. They might be able to see that, listen, you are a physically attractive person, you're a sexually attractive person. They might be able to see that. People are not blind. If you're taking care of your health, they might be able to see that. And more than just physical attraction, emotional attraction, being there for people, sometimes it does grow emotions within people. But it means that you also need to be emotionally mature enough to be able to have these conversations within your relationships, so that when those moments do come with people outside of your relationship, you already have the language to be able to navigate some of these conversations. So it means that you mustn't shy away from some of these conversations. The same way that your partner found you attractive, whether it's because of your character, or it is because of your physique, or it's because of your spirituality, other people can also see the same things. So it's important that you actually address these conversations, so that when it does happen, you already have the language to be able to use within the context where some of these things do happen. And then, of course, finally, the fourth thing, when it comes to secure attachments in the context of a relationship, it's important that your relationship also has positive interactions and communications, right? And then when it comes to this, I think one element that you really need to consider is, are you able to communicate openly about everything, right? Being able to communicate about finances, being able to communicate about just general misunderstandings. Does your partner actually create an environment where you can have an open conversation? And I think some of the conflicts that people have within marriage comes from not being able to be open enough. And sometimes it comes from being, when you're shut down multiple times, sometimes you learn and you become conditioned towards not saying anything. Because again, it goes back to that element of wanting to protect ourselves. No one wants to be in a situation where they're constantly being told that no, don't do that, don't do this, don't do that. Sometimes you just get to that point where you literally start to feel less and less like yourself because you're not allowed to voice yourself openly. And I know a lot of people can relate to this in terms of parent relationships, right? A lot of parents were in a place like just making comments like, I'm not one of your little friends, you don't talk to me like that, you don't talk at me, or you don't respond to some of the things that I'm saying. So because of that, we learn to be more reserved. So I think within the context of relationships, to be able to create an environment where your partner feels safe, it's important that you literally allow them to communicate. And if you see that your partner is not very open within communication, actually speak about that. To inquire of them, what do you think about this? Our finances, we're currently sitting on this. What do you think about that? And that basically creates and fosters trust within the relationship. And it shows that you care about what this person actually thinks. And the next thing is that it's important for you to also look at positive nonverbal communication, right? Our bodies are always constantly communicating. Our bodies always communicate. That's where other people always say that, listen, I always have a resting, not great face. Resting, mean face, mean girl face. I'm going to say it that way so that I don't end up swearing on my channel because I don't want that. But basically people just say that your body is always communicating. And I genuinely think that one of the things that I personally struggled with because of trauma was anger. I was always angry all the time. And that was contained within my body. Your body always keeps a score. Your body is always communicating something. So be cognizant, be self-aware of how am I communicating with my body, even though I'm not saying something with my words. What is my body actually communicating? Because your body communicates a heck of a lot. So sometimes you also need to make sure that within your relationship, you're creating a space that allows you to be open with your partner, that allows you to seem safe, to communicate that, listen, I am safe, I am loving towards you, I am warm towards you, I am nurturing towards you, because that goes a long way. And sometimes it could just be sitting next to your partner and cuddling them, or just putting your arm on them or your hand on them, just to show them that, listen, I'm here and I am your safety. Sometimes that is genuinely needed. And then finally, your body is always needing to be communicating some sort of warmth, some sort of affection. Be in a place where you're communicating warmth and affection. Because imagine this, your partner is having a hectic day, the entire day, whether it's screaming kids or it is work and your bosses that are literally screaming at you or conniving against you, or all these different things that are negative. Imagine that. And then now you come together at the end of the day, and you're coming together to a place that, to a person who feels cold, to a person who feels distant. Doesn't feel so great, doesn't it? Does it? Because I do think that it's very terrible and not great when you are connected with a person in the same home, but you also feel very lonely. Because make no mistake, we can feel lonely in a room full of people. And sometimes it comes from knowing that even though I am around all these people, they're not going to be able to meet my needs, my affectionate needs. So it's very important that you're also open in terms of warmth and in terms of affection, because sometimes that's what allows your relationship to grow and to develop into something beautiful. So these are some of the things that I genuinely thought about just sharing in terms of just creating and growing an environment that allows you as an individual to continue to grow and develop and explore the world and give back into the world, because we are all called to do something within this world to provide some sort of meaning. But in order for us to do that, sometimes it also means, that we are creating and coming from relationships, whether romantically or platonic relationships, that foster our emotional needs. And as much as we may speak of all these different things in terms of emotional availability, safety and support, a sense of exploration and support, and positive interactions and communications, even though we look at it in terms of how are other people doing this for us, how are other people creating an environment for us to be able to self-actualize and become the people that we have been called to be, it's also important that you look at how am I creating an environment that allows my partner, that allows the people in my life to also become the people that they're meant and created to be. Because as much as we expect this of other people, we also need to be able to give it. We also need to be safe. We need to feel safe for the people in our lives. We need to feel emotionally responsive. We need to feel emotionally open to actually hear what they're communicating, what they're saying, so that they are not only creating an environment for us to be able to develop and be great, but we're also creating an environment for them to be great, because relationships are a two-way street. Not a one-way street, two-way street. So it means that we also need to cater for other people's needs. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Please do leave a like. Please do comment. What are some of the things that you've seen in your relationship that have actually allowed you to connect with your partner, that you have recognized in a relationship and literally put a stamp of approval and said, this is a red flag? What is it that has created a healthy environment for you? Share it within the comments, and I would definitely love to hear a little bit more about this conversation. So let's have more of this conversation within the comments. But thank you so much for watching. I'll see you again next week. Thank you and bye for now. See you next week.